Okay. It is a very interesting time to be a Suns fan. And I am not someone who likes to doom and gloom for long. I'll be honest with you, and I'll tell you exactly what I think, but I can't continue to roll on here every single day and tell you how much the Phoenix Suns suck. But I also don't want to blow smoke, if that makes sense. I don't want to lie to you. But, fans on social media have tend to drive me a little crazy. And my guy Ricky, as he says in the chat, Ben, I'm finally up to watch the live. I appreciate you watching the live with us every morning, 6 a.m., Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, local time. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, Ricky. Sandman, Michael, Ivan, my guys in the chat, they are always here. Good dudes. Anyways, it gets a little frustrating dealing with Suns fans. I think they're good people. I don't think anything poorly of them because they're fans. Sometimes they don't use rationale. And I saw last night a tweet from a guy who I don't follow, I don't know, but I'm really sick of this narrative that the Phoenix Suns front office failed Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I'm sick of it. Did Matt Ishbia make some missteps? Without a doubt. Did he go all in on the wrong players? Without a doubt. Did James Jones play a role in this? Probably less than Matt Ishbia, but he did. New owner syndrome. I talked about this with Nick Wright at the Super Bowl last week. It was just a failure. But the idea that the Suns front office failed those two players is ludicrous. And here's why. I saw this tweet last night. I'm not going to say the name of who it was. If you want to follow me on social media platforms and go see that, you can do that. But it said this, 36, I'm so sorry this front office failed you listening to the media in Arizona. Not something you should ever do. The last part of that is just stupid. I always find it very funny that a fan page that calls two players by an arbitrary nickname that Devin Booker coined themselves is just strange to me. But I basically said, now would be a good time to remind everyone that Devin Booker and Kevin Durant also recruited Bradley Beal heavily, meaning they were on board with the vision of the front office, once again meaning they have failed. Not just the Suns front office. Everyone has. So this idea that it's just on the front office, and then of course that same person sent me a screenshot of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Tumani Kamara, and DeAndre Ayton, and basically it said yawn, which is, again, stupid. It's not a real response to something when you don't actually have something smart to say back to a point that I made, and said that this would have worked. But let's take his point at face value. Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Tumani Kamara, DeAndre Ayton. And this is me not necessarily pointing the finger at the Suns season at Kevin Durant or Devin Booker. It's me showing everyone it's just all of it is a colossal failure. It's not just one specific player. And it was those five guys, Tumani Kamara, DeAndre Ayton, the big three. And so I had to tell everyone this. Now would be a good time to remind everyone, Devin Booker didn't want DeAndre Ayton here. He didn't. It's why he said the things he said after their first meeting with DeAndre Ayton, basically saying, if you were someone that was going to, if you're going to play every night like that, DeAndre, basically saying, awesome, but you got to play consistently every single night. DeAndre Ayton didn't do that, and that's why he drove the Suns players insane and the Suns front office insane. That's why Devin Booker didn't want him anymore. And then also I said, you have Kamara. His name's Ryan Dunn. Kamara is just more further along in his development because he's a second-year player. And then at that point, it is just going back and forth with this guy. And then, of course, a fan page on social media thinks that they know more than someone that covers the team and the people on the team. My point is, the Suns players are just as much to blame with this Phoenix Suns season going awry than it is just the Suns players as a whole, guys. It's not just one singular guy. It is the whole combination of players, coaches, and the front office. It's not just me pointing the finger at Booker and Durant, but they do share some blame. And I want to get to why I think the Suns' future is brighter than it looks. But I saw this take from Colin Cowherd yesterday, and I think it was really interesting about what he had to say about Kevin Durant. So, here's Colin talking about Kevin Durant and him ruining his own career, which I think is a little much.
But I said it at the time, and I was shocked at the lack of agreement within NBA media. Kevin Durant tanked his own career. He really did. He was, at the time when he was in Golden State, Kevin Durant was there were a half the people covering the league said he was better than LeBron. He was beating LeBron. He was a better offensive player. He made Steph look small. He was MVP of finals. The league thought it was twice. The league thought it was unfair. I mean, Adam Silver was uncomfortable with how dominant they were. And then he decided, I want to go play with Kyrie in Brooklyn. The hell? And I've always felt the difference between LeBron and KD is not their games. They're both all-time great players. The difference between LeBron and KD is LeBron is more like a Gordon Ramsay or a Jay-Z. I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman. And Kevin Durant is more the artist who halfway through the tour cancels the tour, sues Ticketmaster, and gets into a fist fight with his drummer. Is like,
I think that's a little far. And I love Colin. I recently met Colin in New Orleans for the first time, a guy I really look up to in this business. I think he's fantastic at what he does. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. Kevin Durant started off in Oklahoma City. Then he went over to the Golden State Warriors, won 2 championships. Yes, the Brooklyn move was a disaster. But going to Phoenix wasn't seen as a disaster. There was a lot of good players here. Bradley Beal was added to this roster. It wasn't just all doom and gloom for the Phoenix Suns when Kevin Durant came here. He came here with championship aspirations for this team. So I think that part is a little unfair towards Kevin Durant's career. But it does go to show you, he did play a hand along with Devin Booker. This is not me defending Devin Booker by any stretch of the imagination. Last night, him not playing because of soreness, when the Suns' season is hanging in the balance, when he's about to have a week off, just lunacy for the Suns team. Just absolute lunacy. But it just goes to show you, everyone has played a hand in the Suns' missteps this year. It's not just the front office, guys. I think it's nonsense to think that way. And then it leads me to this. As much as I love having Kevin Durant on the Phoenix Suns, and last night was a terrible loss, the Suns' future is much brighter than people give it credit for. Much brighter than people give it credit for. Because there's a team out there who has a do-over button sitting right in front of them. And I think by this time next year, the Suns are not going to be championship contenders. That is so far out the window. Couple of seasons down the line, then it can change. But there is something to look forward to. If the Houston Rockets want Kevin Durant, the Phoenix Suns should almost be convincing the Rockets they want him, so much so that it's going to be negotiating on both sides, where the Rockets kind of want Kevin Durant and the Suns have to convince them to take Kevin Durant. Because you look at what the Suns roster next year could look like. I mean, think about it. Seriously, think about it. You have to get either one of Fred VanVleet or Dylan Brooks. Otherwise, the money doesn't work. So one of those guys is a non-negotiable. They have to be on in any trade for Kevin Durant. because of the money. So you add a Fred VanVleet or a Dylan Brooks. It's probably a Fred VanVleet. He's 31 years old. He's your new point guard. Good player. Nothing more than that. A good player who is mostly just money in a trade. But if you can get a Jabari Smith and a Cam Whitmore, which I don't think is insane. What I do think is insane is asking for Şengün or Thompson. Those two things are crazy. It's a pipe dream. It's not happening. But, I mean, if the Lakers can get Luka Doncic for pennies on the dollar, I feel like you could ask for more for that being one Kevin Durant in a trade. Not that Kevin's better than Luka, but you could put it out there. You just don't want to be fleeced like the opposing team. And I think that that's a cheap price to pay for the Rockets to get a top 10 player of all time who I don't think is even close to being washed. And it's a Suns team at that point where you could get a Fred VanVleet, a Cam Whitmore, a Jabari Smith Jr., get all your picks back, and maybe a little bit then some. Maybe an extra pick to sweeten the deal. A sweetener, if you will. And then you look at what the Suns team can look like. Fred VanVleet, Bradley Beal running the point guard position. Who knows? This might be a little too far. Maybe you can get a Reed Shepherd. He hasn't been amazing this year. He got sent down to the G League at one point. But if you can potentially get him, and you go from a Fred VanVleet and a Bradley Beal at the point guard position, maybe a Reed Shepherd, then a Devin Booker, a Royce O'Neal at the shooting guard position, and then at the small forward spot, Devin Booker, Cam Whitmore, add an extra player in there in free agency. Then you have Jabari Smith and Ryan Dunn as well at the forward position. Bowles there as well. Nick Richards, and you're able to add a guy. Because not only can you trade Kevin Durant for a Cam Whitmore, for a Jabari Smith Jr., for your picks back, but then at that point, you can get yourself below the second apron. And with the assets that you have around here from that Kevin Durant trade, your picks then become available to also be traded. You get a center on this team very quickly, I might add. And then at that point, that Suns team is a top 5 team in the West. They're probably 5. They're probably 6. But they're fun to watch. They're frisky. They're young. At that point, you go from old and brittle to young and kind of spunky. You wait an extra year for that Bradley Beal contract. Maybe after, with only 2 years left on the deal, it's a little bit more tradable. And maybe you can find something with this roster. I'm not trying to push Kevin Durant out the door. And I think it's a little much to say he's tanked his own career because of one bad move going over with the Brooklyn Nets. But I do think that this Suns team is closer to salvaging than people think. And I think the Houston Rockets are a team that can give a lot to this Suns team, and it won't necessarily cost the Rockets very much because they're not using their own picks, and they still keep the core of their team: Şengün, Thompson, Jalen Green. So this Suns team, it's not doom and gloom for years to come. Add an owner that is willing to be aggressive and ready to learn from his mistakes. I do think the Suns are closer to being relevant than some people think. And I think with a trade for the Houston Rockets that gives the Rockets Kevin Durant, the Phoenix Suns can get some players as well. Some younger guys that can help turn this team from old and brittle to young and spunky and a little bit bigger and below the second apron. It's not all doom and gloom. It can be fixed fairly quickly. And I think it's a little much to say it's the front office's fault that the Suns are awful. No, it's a little bit of everyone's. The Suns have a cultural issue, and it just needs to be fixed in some aspect, because right now what they're rolling out isn't working.